So this is your first activity about electronics. What we are trying to do today is to do a truth table and a K-map. So the goal is to see the output depending on the input. So what you have to imagine is your input, X and Y there. That's two switch. When it's on 0, they are on off. When it's on 1, they are on. So when they are on, when the switch is on, it's on 1. Okay, so let's just me write it. 0 equal off, 1 is equal to on. Okay, so you imagine a little box with two switches. First, when X is on 0 and Y on 0, it means that two switches are on off. When it's on 0 and 1, it means the first switch is on off and the second switch is on 1. X is on and Y is on off, and X and Y are on. So that's this table on the left. This is always the same. We always write it the same way: 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. So we begin by the first input, zeros and ones, and after that, for the second input, we switch 0, 1, 0, 1. Okay, so this one on the left there, never change. Now the output. The output depends of your informations. You all have something different. Me, in my case, I will use that. Let me copy exactly what I will use. It's the two inputs, the input 2, let me write it in. The input 2 must be 1 to get the output 1. Okay? You all have something different. Okay? I spread you with the teams. You are not with your teams. Each person in the same team are on different instructions. Anyway, so the two inputs, the input 2 must be 1 to get the output 1. So let's look at the first one. 0, 0. The second input is not 1, so it's 0. 0, 1, the input 2, so the Y is on 1. So yes, the output will be 1. 1 and 0, the output 2 is on 0, so that will be 0. And 1 and 1, the output, the input 2 is on 1, so the output will be 1. Okay, so these 4 outputs will be different from each of you, okay, depending on your instructions. Now minterm. Minterm is the combination of X and Y. Okay, when X is on 0, we call that X prime. When it's on 1, we call that X. So for the first line, we have X prime, Y prime. So we will write it X prime, Y prime. Okay. The second one is X prime, Y. Be careful, remove the prime of the second one. So 0 for X and 1 for Y. X prime, that is a 0X, and Y. Third one is X, Y prime, because we have X that is 1 and Y that is 0. And the last one will be X and Y. Oops, not X, Y prime, X and Y. Make sure that you don't include the prime. Okay, so now, which conditions lead to an output 1? That's the sum of product, extended form. So the sum of product there, so write it in the column B, that will be the midterm when the output is 1. So we have X prime Y, this one. Let me highlight my 1 and this one. Okay, so X prime Y plus X Y. Okay, so that's the two midterms for an output 1. That's my first steps, and we have the result for the sum of product extended form. Now we will use this little table that's called KMap. Okay, so KMap, so instead of having each output and midterms in rows, we will have them in table. Okay, and we will be able to group them. So X prime, Y prime, X prime, Y prime, 0, 0, that's this column. It leads to output 0, so I will put 0 there. Okay, so inside, I put my outputs, those the column C. Y prime and X, Y prime and X, this one, that leads to 0. X prime and Y, X prime and Y, X prime and Y, that this one, it leads to 1. And X and Y, XY, this midterm, 1, 1, leads to 1. Okay, so that's the KMap table. Okay, Um, you can use the same template for each two inputs analysis and KMap. Okay, what changed is what is inside. Now we can group the ones that are next to each other by 2. So we can group this one and this one together. Oops, let me group them. I'll put it in green. So what does that mean? That means that as soon as we have y, if it's for x prime or x, as soon as we have y, we have a 1. So the simplifying form will be just y, because we can make the calculation. It's like x prime y plus xy, it's equal to x prime plus x times y, it's equal to y. We factorize by y. And x prime plus x, that's the two only inputs possible. Like x prime plus x, I mean, it means that the switch number 1, the switch x, doesn't have any effect on the output. The only thing that is important is to have the y on. As soon as the y is on, your output is 1. Okay? So what is easier to put in your circuit? One switch for the y, and using the logic form that as soon as we have y, we have an output, or is it to use x prime y plus xy will lead to a 1? For sure, the simplified form is easier. That's why before designing the circuit, the logic circuit and the electrical circuit, we need to find the simplifying form to simplify as much as possible. Again, the sum of the product and your simplified form will be different for each of you. Remember that you can group two ones that are next to each other. So those two 1, or those two 1, or those two 1, or those two 1. If you have the 4 of them, you will just have xy. Okay, and that's it. So ask me if you have questions, because I know in this activity I made a different example, and you all have something different, but the principle is the same. One step at a time. Fill your output depending on your instructions. Write your midterms. Fill your KMap table inside. And after that, groups the ones together to find the simplified form. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye-bye.